In this video, I'm going to show you how to simplify the complex fraction x over x squared minus 10x plus 21, subtract 3 over x squared minus 10x plus 21, divided by x over x squared minus 2x minus 35, plus negative 6 over x squared minus 2x minus 35. So in this problem, the first thing you should notice is that the fractions in the numerator have a common denominator. So I can go ahead and combine my numerator and write it over the common denominator, x squared minus 10x plus 21. And I can do the same thing in the denominator since those two fractions have a common denominator, and I can write it x plus negative 6 over x squared minus 2x minus 35. Now I still have a complex fraction because I have fraction within a fraction. So I'm going to use the LCD method, okay, and the LCD method says find the least common denominator of these two denominators within the overall fraction and multiply both the top and the bottom by that least common denominator. That means I need to factor these two denominators. So x squared minus 10x plus 21 will factor as x minus 3 and x minus 7. Because when I distribute this out, the minus 3 and minus 7 will give me the minus 10x, and the minus 3 times minus 7 will give me the plus 21. Okay? Then my denominator, x squared minus 2x minus 35 will factor as x minus 7 x plus 5. So that's x minus 7 x plus 5 for this denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the numerator as x minus 3 over x minus 3, x minus 7, and the denominator as x minus 6, because plus a negative 6 can be written as subtraction, over x minus 7, x plus 5. Now, I could go ahead and reduce my numerator now, because you'll notice that the denominator has a factor of x minus 3 and the numerator has a factor of x minus 3. So I would be careful and go ahead and put these binomials in parentheses, and then these will divide out and leave a 1, and then there's not anything that can divide out in the denominator. So I have a 1 over x minus 7, and I'm going to put that in parentheses, over x minus 6 over x minus 7 x plus 5. Now, even though I have reduced my numerator, I still have a fraction within a fraction. So I'm going to use the LCD method now that I have reduced as much as I can to go ahead and help me clear these denominators from this complex fraction. So the LCD I need to use is going to be x minus 7 and x plus 5. This LCD has to contain all the factors of the first denominator and all the factors of the second denominator without duplicating. So I don't need two x minus 7 factors because I've got enough to cover it here. So now I'm going to do my multiplication with my LCD. So in this numerator, I'm going to multiply by x minus 7, x plus 5. And because this is a fraction, if I multiply the numerator by something, I must multiply the denominator by the exact same thing. So I'm going to multiply it by x minus 7, x plus 5. Now I can treat each of these separately and do some more reducing. So I'm going to reduce my numerator. My x minus 7's will divide to 1. Of course, if there's any other factor remaining, you don't have to write that 1. In my denominator, my x minus 7's and my x plus 5's. So now, all I need to do is write what's left. So I'm going to create a little space here so I can do that. So I'm going to end up with, in my numerator, I've got a 1 times a 1 times an x plus 5. Well, that's just an x plus 5. And in my denominator, I only have an x minus 6. So the final answer for this problem is x plus 5 divided by x minus 6. And you'll see that this is much simpler than this original fraction that had 4 separate fractions in it. We're down to just a single numerator and a single denominator. Now be careful. You cannot reduce these x's because they are terms. Terms are numbers that are added or subtracted. And when you're doing this kind of reducing, sometimes called canceling, what you're actually doing is dividing out common factors, things that are being multiplied. And these are being added, and so you can't divide those x's because x plus 5 has to stay together as a total unit and x minus 6 has to stay together. So the final answer is x plus 5, x minus 6.